Hi everyone, I'm Anna, your cinephile host. Today, let's talk about the movie The Theory of Everything. It paints a brilliant portrait of Stephen Hawking, the famous physicist who has advanced the studies of quantum mechanics, general relativity, and black hole radiation. Eddie Redmayne's depiction of Hawking is the absolutely vital key in this film. Needless to say, he received an Oscar for this role. The movie reveals the man behind the famous scientific icon, courageous, funny, at times rebellious, but also difficult and selfish. So let's watch The Theory of Everything, a heartbreaking story of one of the greatest minds of humanity. In 1963, Stephen Hawking is a physics PhD student at Cambridge, enjoying parties, rowing, and banter with his friend Brian. Stephen is a promising, dedicated student, though maybe he's not always acting like it. After his professor gives out a difficult assignment, Stephen brings back the right answers scrawled on the back of a train schedule. Stephen Hawking begins a romantic relationship with literature student Jane Wilde after meeting her at a party. They attend a May ball where Stephen gets over his shyness and dances with Jane.
What about you? What are you?
Oh, cosmologist. I'm a cosmologist.
What's that?
It's a kind of religion for intelligent atheists.
Although Stephen excels at mathematics and physics, his friends and professors are concerned over his lack of a thesis topic. After attending a lecture on black holes, Stephen speculates that black holes may have been part of the creation of the universe and decides to write his thesis on them.
So I gather you've never been to church?
Once upon a time.
Tempted to convert?
I have a slight problem with the whole celestial dictator premise.
While pursuing his research, Stephen's muscles begin to fail, eventually causing him to fall and hit his head. Doctors examine him, and he's told he has a motor neuron disease, his muscle will degenerate, and he has only 2 years to live.
To prove with a single equation that time had a beginning. Wouldn't that be nice, Professor? The one simple, elegant equation to explain everything.
As Stephen becomes reclusive, focusing on his work, Jane confesses she loves him. She tells Stephen's father she intends to stay with Stephen even as his condition worsens. They marry and have their first son, Robert.
I don't think you realize what lies ahead, Jane. His life is going to be very short. So be careful. The weight of science is against you. And this will not be a fight, Jane. This is going to be a very heavy defeat. For all of us.
Stephen successfully presents his thesis to the examination board and obtains his PhD. His research gains admirers, but his physical condition is rapidly deteriorating. He cannot speak fluently or walk, he must be fed, and he often chokes. Eventually, he begins using a wheelchair. Looking after him is exhausting Jane, but Stephen is resistant to getting external help. Jane's mother sees how stressed she is and suggests she join a church choir where Jane meets choir master Jonathan, who has lost his wife and is lonely. Jonathan becomes a family friend, helping with Stephen and the kids, but this closeness isn't approved of by Stephen's family. When the Hawkings have their third baby, Stephen's mother outrageously asks Jane if the child is Jonathan's. Jane and Jonathan decide to step apart because they do have feelings for each other, but Stephen convinces Jonathan to return. Stephen is invited to attend an opera performance in France and suggests he attend with his students while Jane and Jonathan take the children camping. Stephen is taken ill during the performance and rushed to a hospital. While in the hospital, the doctor informs Jane that he has contracted pneumonia and that he needs a tracheotomy in order to survive, but which will leave him unable to speak. She agrees to the surgery. Stephen must then learn to communicate through a spelling board, and the couple's life gets harder. But then, a trained nurse, Elaine, arrives, and Stephen is very happy to communicate with ease. Even better, a computerized application soon helps him give voice to his thoughts, and he forms a fun relationship with Elaine. Stephen even uses his computer to write a book, A Brief History of Time, which becomes an international bestseller. Meanwhile, the distance between Stephen and Jane is growing. Finally, Stephen tells Jane that Elaine will be accompanying him in America during his visit to accept an award. Jane realizes their marriage is over, but the couple remains close friends. Stephen attends the lecture with Elaine. The two have fallen in love, and Jane and Jonathan reunite. At the lecture, Stephen sees a student drop a pen. He imagines getting up to return it, almost crying at the reminder of how his disease has affected him. He goes on to give an inspiring speech, saying life is about hope, courage, and human endeavor to which there is no boundary. Stephen Hawking is invited by the Queen to be honored, and he invites Jane, now married to Jonathan, and their children to accompany him. The couple sits in the garden and smiles with Stephen saying, "Look what we made."
What about you? What are you?
Oh, cosmologist. I'm a cosmologist.
What's that?
It's a kind of religion for intelligent atheists.
I don't think you realize what lies ahead, Jane. His life is going to be very short. So be careful. The weight of science is against you. And this will not be a fight, Jane. This is going to be a very heavy defeat. For all of us.
So I gather you've never been to church.
Once upon a time.
Tempted to convert?
I have a slight problem with the whole celestial dictator premise.
The theory of everything is not a brief history of time. It is a brief history of love. And it is as complex and deceptively deep as any of the physics. Eddie Redmayne is so convincing as famous physicist Stephen Hawking that you will likely be unable to separate the two men in your mind once this genuinely moving film comes to an end. This film is a portrait of a brave, brilliant man and the equally courageous woman who gave him everything. It's a celebration of life in all of its beauty and sadness. I'm your host Anna, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find more on Fundy website. Stay tuned.